When I say the phrase perfect sequel, what comes to mind for you? It could be James Cameron's impeccable Aliens or the jaw-dropping Empire Strikes Back. Both are excellent examples, but I always return to Halo 2 when I hear that phrase. The groundbreaking follow-up to Combat Evolved had an influence on the gaming space that is still felt today. I have a weird attachment to it, because funny enough, it's not only the first Halo game I played, but it was the first M-rated title I ever played as well. I still remember my mom taking me to GameStop and giving me the nod of approval. That moment had me feeling like Caesar in Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
What's this?
What's he doing?
I don't believe that.
It's okay. Come on, Caesar. Off you go!
My mom allowing me to play that game has led to some of my most cherished memories, and a love for this franchise that I find hard to put into words. That's what we call good parenting, and I can't wait to share the byproduct of that parenting with you. Like my video for Combat Evolved, I will be reviewing this game through the Master Chief Collection, which also means I will be covering the Anniversary Edition of Halo 2. The Anniversary Edition of the game is spectacular, and I'll talk more about that in the presentation section. Until then, what's going on with the story? Halo 2 picks up shortly after Combat Evolved. We catch up with Master Chief, who is receiving honors for his work destroying the Halo ring we saw in the last game. However, something interesting is happening during this opening. While the player witnesses the Chief's achievement, they also witness a far less savory event. An alien of the Covenant army is being held accountable for failure. This elite was tasked with claiming Halo for the Covenant, but it was already detonating when he discovered that the humans were planning to destroy it. This displeased the leaders of the Covenant. These prophets sentenced the elite to die, but in a very unconventional way. The elite will be given the title and responsibility of Arbiter, a responsibility long passed down through Covenant tradition that requires its title holder to accomplish suicide missions on behalf of this religious quest that alien bastards keep talking about.
The Great Journey!
The tone of Halo 2 is perfectly set up with these opening cutscenes. We see the dichotomy between our two playable leads, and how they are driven by responsibility. The Chief is driven by his continued dedication to protecting humanity. He's even more determined, considering the Covenant is at the front door of Earth this time. Master Chief's motivations are strong, and he's more talkative than before. This leads to additional character development, which I appreciate, but I prefer the other story we see in Halo 2. The Arbiter is motivated by guilt, and is dedicated to redeeming himself through dying in battle for a religious belief that is provably false, I might add. This lie that the Arbiter dedicated himself to will put him on a path that challenges the dogma that he holds so dear, and that's why the narrative is so fascinating to me. I love the Master Chief, and he may be on the cover, but it doesn't matter. Halo 2 is the Arbiter's game. Narratively, Halo 2 is where you can find the most lore we've ever seen in one of the Bungie Halos. Before the release of this title, we didn't know anything about the Covenant beyond them being bloodthirsty aliens. Within the first 5 minutes of this game, you know how their hierarchy functions, their goals, and key characters throughout their ranks. Not only did the writer deliver that information quickly, but he did it without it feeling like an exposition dump. Lesser writers would have had some long, drawn-out voiceover at the start, talking about what the Covenant is doing and where the humans are at this point. It would kind of be like what I do with my videos.
How about you suck my cock? Ha!
I'm saying they made a lot of good decisions when it comes to the story. It was an excellent choice to include a second narrative to go along with the Master Chief's, and it amounts to the best story seen in the franchise, with some minor drawbacks. The Arbiter is complex, but what about the other characters? We see some development between Chief and Cortana's relationship that puts him in a very tough spot later on, but beyond that, there isn't much going on with the other people in this game. I remember them because they're iconic at this point, but what does Miranda Keyes do in this game, outside of asking questions and getting kidnapped? Or Lord Hood, what can you tell me about this man other than he has a badass voice? I hate to see that this complaint carried over from Combat Evolved, and it's weird because there's so much focus on the Arbiter's story, but that energy isn't shared elsewhere, not even with Chief, and I say that because his story's ending feels abrupt as hell. I've heard the events of Halo 3 were supposed to be in Halo 2, but couldn't be added due to time constraints. That makes a lot of sense as to why Chief feels like he's catapulted to the finish, but it doesn't change the fact that it feels unsatisfying. I could look past that if I just got to know more about the characters. For example, Sergeant Johnson. Are the rumors true?
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Interestingly enough, I always forget about the complaints while I'm actually playing through the game, because it's just so damn good. Every time I revisit Halo 2, the campaign becomes increasingly engrossing, to the point I may say it's the best campaign in the franchise. But even if that's the case, does it have the best gameplay?
360 no scope.
Is he still alive? Oh my god!
My reasoning for calling Halo 2 a perfect sequel is because, in my opinion, to be a perfect sequel requires a project to improve on most, if not all, aspects of its predecessor, which Halo 2 does, and it's clearly seen with the gameplay. There's a lot to mention, but starting out with the weapon selection, almost all the weapons from the previous game carried over, and there are some extremely welcomed new additions, including but not limited to the Energy Sword. It is one of the most iconic weapons in gaming history, and if that wasn't scratching your power fantasy itch, Bungie also added the addition of dual-wielding smaller weapons. On that note, the shooting has experienced a significant improvement from Combat Evolved. There's a bit of recoil to your weapons to add realism, and the shooting feels more varied from gun to gun. Another change is the health packs have been completely removed, opting for a complete regenerative health system this time, which honestly I don't mind. I know this particular addition is debated in the Halo community, but I can... One aspect I love conclusively is the focus on vehicles in Halo 2. The physics are more forgiving than before, and there are more opportunities to use vehicles, especially because you can now hijack, GTA style, which always has me thinking of this classic for some reason.
Big fat bitch, where's my money?
Money, I don't got your money. I don't even know where it is.
I'm not done polishing this game off. The level variety is spectacular, with players navigating large Covenant ships, ancient tombs, and the city of New Mombasa on Earth itself. You even get the lightest of stealth mechanics with the Arbiter's Cloak during his missions. And there are a few set pieces in this game that are on par with any action film. For the love of Jesus, am I boarding a scarab to kill these sons of bitches? The enemy variety is even bigger than what was seen in the first game, so get ready to rip and tear. Another fun addition is the skulls that officially debuted in the 2004 release. These collectible items are fun to find and even more fun to activate. There is so much to like in this game, but unfortunately, there are a couple things I don't enjoy. Most can agree that Bungie's Halo games have a wonky checkpoint system. Sometimes it feels like they're based on the amount of enemies in the area, and other times it feels like they're based on the distance traveled through the mission. If the moon happens to be waning, I think that contributes to it as well. I'm being ridiculous, but that's how it feels sometimes. 90% of the time it's fair, but that 10%, me and my friend are getting kicked back 15 minutes. It's a good thing you can play through the campaign with one friend, because for my money, Halo 2 on Legendary is the hardest in the franchise. If you've attempted a Legendary run, you know the obvious reason for this. It's the Jackal snipers. These dudes are so brutal they were added to the canon to explain why they are so ball-busting. This is the apparent reason for the game being so harsh. But I also noticed that the level design could be better in some areas. What I mean by this is you may have one extreme of being put in an open courtyard with loads of enemies and no cover, or you can have the other extreme of being pushed through a funnel-like corridor with snipers above you. So if you're playing on Legendary, you can expect a lot of
Transport that isn't afraid of a little hostile ground fire.
yeah, loads of that. It wouldn't be so bad, but Halo 2 has an overall balancing problem, in my opinion. I say this because the heroic difficulty doesn't feel very challenging despite the level design being unforgiving, but you kick it up to Legendary and all hell breaks loose. I could see that Bungie was aware of this before launch, but this game got pushed out the door with no time to spare. So the bullshit of the Legendary difficulty is etched in time. The fortunate thing is, none of the complaints I mentioned spoil the pie. Halo 2 may arguably have the most linear, unbalanced campaign in the franchise, but it still manages to be a fan favorite. This is largely due to the enthralling campaign, but how could I not mention the phenomenon that was the multiplayer? It's hard to overstate how much of a cultural moment Halo 2's multiplayer was for gaming. Xbox Live came into its own with Halo 2, showing the world that competitive first-person shooters were possible online through console. Not only was it possible, but Halo 2 was able to excel with detailed stats, clan mechanics, and the ability to customize your character. These concepts took off if you consider the 8 million copies sold and the online player base that remained consistent until the game's shut-off date in 2010. 14 passionate fans managed to keep the game going longer than expected because they realized they were allowed to keep playing as long as they didn't log out of their accounts. They stayed on for days to protest Halo 2 being shut off. Those 14 players are nothing short of
Patriots.
The game's original life cycle was inspiring, and I missed every second of it. I played through the campaign during the original Xbox's life cycle, but I never played a round of multiplayer, whether online or via LAN party.
Parasite is not to be trifled with.
I was far too young at the time for my mom to accept online gaming. This woman wouldn't even let me have sleepovers with friends that we've known for years, because she was sure the other kids' parents were gonna fuck me. She wasn't gonna let me play online with strangers. You may be wondering how or why I'm including the multiplayer section of this video. It's because the Master Chief Collection has done an excellent job preserving what Halo 2's multiplayer was. It's easy for you to hop into a 4 vs 4 Team Slayer match, and chop other players down using the game's many weapons and vehicles. Arena shooting may be out of style as of late, but it's nice to unwind sometime with the game that made that subgenre its bitch. There is nothing like getting warm in a match of OG Halo 2. The maps do a good job at pushing you into each other's line of sight, so if the other team is having trouble taking you down, they're gonna have a bad time. That goes double for me because I'm garbage.
Shuck.
I've only been able to get smaller player count game modes going, whether it be Capture the Flag or Slayer, but those are some of my favorite game modes anyway. I don't have many qualms. It would have been nice to play some Big Team though. My heart will always long for Big Team. If we're talking about wants, let's talk about the Anniversary Edition of the multiplayer. First off, I wanted an actual remaster of the multiplayer, like what we got with the campaign. If you've ever played the Anniversary Edition of the multiplayer and thought that it didn't feel quite like Halo 2, that's because it's not. In layman's terms, 343 technically plugged all of Halo 2's settings into Halo 4's engine and gave us this Frankenstein. Even worse, they couldn't even remaster the 26 map roster seen in the original game. No, they gave us 6.
Like 7 is the real number.
No push, they're giving us 6. And it's blasphemy, because I actually enjoy the remastered multiplayer. Sure, it's not as good as the original, but they include the original. If you want to play that version, it's here. But if I want to play a more modern version that's decent with a different feel, I can play the Anniversary. That is until I get bored of the 6 maps. But still, I guess we can't win them all. Maybe we can with the presentation.
On your way, Arbiter. I'll deal with these beasts.
When Halo 2 dropped back in 2004, its graphics were jaw-dropping. As a young lad, I remember thinking gaming would never look better than this. It's so funny to say that out loud. But nonetheless, the original graphics show a lot of effort, with some decent textures and lighting that has aged pretty well. The color palette of the game is drab in some areas, but makes up for it in others. All that being said, look at the Anniversary Edition's graphics. Oh my god, they are so pretty. Sure, the graphics of the original are timeless and nostalgic. But look. Some comparisons aren't even close. The Gravemind is something out of nightmares, when before he looked like a head of cabbage. Still, the original graphics show so much effort, and I can only imagine how hard it was to animate convincing lip syncing when running in-engine cutscenes. But look! Look!
Touch it.
It's not just the graphics either. All the sound in the game got an overhaul, making the experience even more immersive. And can we talk about the music for a second? 2004 must have been Halo 2's punk rock / emo phase, because Breaking Benjamin, I see you, influencing the score with those guitar riffs, and I'm here for it. Be honest, Halo, were you only listening to that music to pull chicks? Was it entirely unsuccessful for you as well? My love life aside, the sound is genuinely great in Halo 2, and I love that Microsoft and Bungie weren't afraid to spend some money on recognizable voice actors. Steve Downes is always great as Chief, but it's nice to hear others. Lord Hood may not leave a huge impression, but the impression that he does leave is mainly due to Ron Perlman's sultry voice. Also, if I can praise the Arbiter a little more, Keith David's performance in Halo 2 may be my favorite in any video game. This man does not speak unless it's heat.
Even on my knees, I do not belong in their presence. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed. Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us. The prophets buy your loyalty, Arbiter. With the new command,
They promised me Arby's.
If you play the Anniversary Edition, you can cycle through the new graphics and sound with the press of a button. So all you have to do is play through the game a little bit to find out your preference. God knows what I prefer. Halo 2 stands the test of time despite approaching 20 years old. The campaign is interesting and feels modern, with a sandbox that's entertaining with every playthrough, and the multiplayer is charmingly simple when viewing it through a modern lens. These two ingredients alone were enough to call Halo 2 great, but the nostalgia wrapped up in it makes it timeless. It's understandable why the Halo community seems to view 2 as the peak of the series, and I see where people are coming from with that. Each time I return to Halo 2, it moves up my list of favorites. Despite that, it's not touching the GOAT, but we'll talk about Halo 3 next. If you want to play the game, you can play the original and the Anniversary Edition via the Master Chief Collection, like I mentioned at the start. Or you could be the real MVP and play a 2004 copy on an original Xbox. Maybe bust out the CRT? I don't know, nothing crazy. That's it for me. As always, thank you for your time.
For a brick, he flew pretty good.
Chief, get inside. Gear up.